to help you grow as a product management leader and improve your product management or product marketing team. Our ultimate goal, of course, is to help you enable your team and company to build the best products for your customers. Today's series, or today's webinar rather, will focus on two themes: how to transform my team and implications of change. Move to the next slide. And today's audience, this is a snapshot of who we expect to see today. As usual, about half of the audience are product managers or product marketers. We have about 20% who are VPs and directors, and of course, a good number of people who have submitted as others. So that includes a lot of people interested in product management as well.
Excellent. Great mix of folks, and this topic is going to apply to everyone very, very well. In fact, others and POs, product owners, will get a lot out of this as well, thinking about the big picture of what a product looks like.
Yeah, as we know, product management really involves everyone.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. Well, you can kick it off.
All right, I'll take it from here. We're talking about the whole product concept. So we're going to lay down a little bit of groundwork here before we get into deeper ideas. But the whole product concept has actually been around for quite a long time. It was first introduced by Regis McKenna and Theodore Levitt, but it really came into its own in Geoffrey Moore's seminal work, Crossing the Chasm. That's where the concept really came into wide usage, right? And this definition I've got over here on the left, and in Wikipedia now even has a standard definition for it. But what I want to emphasize is it's looking at more than just this idea of the out-of-the-box features of your product and thinking about the entire experience of a product. So from the very first time that a potential buyer looks at the idea of, I've got a problem to solve and I need something to solve it, and they start looking at your product all the way through the actual purchase of the product, the use of the product, then when they have challenges with the product, talking about customer service. So it's all of these different aspects that come together to make this whole product concept. Now, in the original definition of it, there were these 5 different layers of the whole product concept. And at 280 Group, we borrowed from some work that was done at the University of North Carolina, because we thought this really does a good job of simplifying the idea a little bit. And here what we've got is this concept of there are 3 aspects to the whole product that you really need to concern yourself as a product manager. Now, from my experience of leading product managers for over 20 years, most of the time product managers spend the majority of their time really worrying about what we call this actual product. And I'm hoping you can see my little laser pointer here. But 80% of the time, that's where product managers spend their time. They're all thinking about, well, what are my features? What's the packaging going to look like? What's the quality, right? What's the style, depending on what kind of product you're talking about? This is where product managers spend the bulk of their time. And to a certain degree, that's the right thing to do. However, you miss out on a lot of opportunities to really differentiate your product in the marketplace and potentially find new ways to help your customers when you miss thinking about these other 2 aspects. So I want to go to the top first and talk about the core of your product. And in particular, if you're a product manager, like I've had to do a number of times, who inherits a product that's already out in the marketplace, right? You're hired on, you move into the division of product management and you take over a product and it's already been out there for a couple of years. And you just kind of assume you understand what the product's about. But it's a good time when you're taking over a product, and I even think if you even started this product, it's a good idea to revisit your core of your product every year and think about, what are the key benefits that my product really offers? What is it that I'm helping my customer do? And it could be as simple as I'm helping my customer have enjoyment, if we're talking about a product like a toy or Netflix. Or it could be, if we're talking B2B, that this is a product that really helps improve productivity or helps that customer increase their revenue. But you've got to be thinking about that benefit first and foremost, because that should then inform all the decisions you make about the actual product and the augmented product. And in a couple of slides, I'm going to help you revisit this idea of benefits in a little more depth, so we'll come back to that. But then there's this other aspect, this third aspect of the whole product concept, which is the augmented characteristics of a product. And oftentimes, this is where you think about things like standards, installation, integration, services. how do you price the product, but also how do you allow people to purchase the product? Are there finance options available? Are there some other elements outside the main product that you need to add to make that main product more effective or more accessible? And then of course, customer care. How many of you have a service where then when you actually need help, that's when you feel horrible about the product because the customer care experience is not great? And that overall feeling then carries back to your feelings about the core product itself as well. So having good customer care is an essential aspect of this whole product, of these augmented characteristics. So to explain this a little bit better, I want to come up with an example, right? Let's talk a little bit about Uber. And with respect to Uber, the service there, the benefits are the same as a taxi, right? Your benefit of using Uber is to get from point A to point B, right? Without having to drive yourself, right? Particularly if you're in a city that you're not familiar with, all right? So you're hiring someone else's vehicle and that driver to get you from point A to point B. Same thing as a taxi. So the core benefits of Uber versus taking a taxi, they're the same, right? Second, the actual product itself is pretty much the same as well in terms of a taxi driver and their vehicle versus the Uber driver and their vehicle. All of those characteristics are the same as well. 4 tires typically, and a car taking you from point A to point B. So Uber doesn't differentiate itself between taxi service and Uber in either the core or the actual product. So the place where Uber actually shines, where it's different is in the augmented characteristics of the product. That's where they have made such a big difference in the industry. I mean, they disrupted the temporary transportation industry by providing an app. That's that additional software and hardware. By being somewhere where you can call for Uber the night before with a scheduled call, or you can do it from a lobby when you're nice and safe and warm inside the hotel lobby. You don't have to step out on the curb and do the whole hailing the cab thing like in New York City, right? All of that is different as well. And then the way you actually pay for the service is different as well. You pay afterwards, right? When you're, again, safe inside on your way to your meeting, right? You are able to pay for it in a different way as well. So Uber did not differentiate itself in either the actual product or the core. All the differentiation of that service was down here in the augmented characteristics. And so that's why when I've been leading product management teams, I hammer home the idea to my product managers, you've got to look at the augmented characteristics of the product, because that can be where you can really make a big difference in the whole solution and differentiate yourself from the rest of the market.
Right, Roger, I just want to cut in here and say, when you focus on the augmented aspects of the product, that's not to say those aspects don't provide true benefits for the product, right? So that's kind of the point that we're making here, is you get to uncover new benefits when you take a different perspective on what the whole product is.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is definitely connected, right? You've got to start at the core, understand the problems your customers have or the benefits that your customers are trying to realize, and then look at both actual product and augmented and find out in this whole mix of things, how can I best satisfy those customer needs, deliver those benefits, and be different from my competition, right? And if you spend all your time in here, you're missing out on lots of opportunities to provide more value to your customers. Great point, Rena. All right, so let's dig in a little bit deeper on those key points, right? So customers pay for value, all right? And that value can come from various different places in terms of perception, right? You oftentimes your value is in comparison to a competitor's product. How much better or worse are the characteristics of your product versus the competition? Also, many times there's the old way of doing things, the status quo. This is the delta from the current solution, right? So this is, how do I do it today? And how will this new product help me do it better, more effectively, or with more fun, depending on what kind of product it is. Now, what we label here as most important, though, are these pain points and these benefits that also include brand. So sometimes brand can actually be a big influencer on the value that people perceive. Think about luxury products, for example. In cosmetics, in fashion, in vehicles, all of those areas are where brand really is a part of the value that's perceived in the product. So don't forget that. But really, pain points for me is the really big one in terms of, can you help solve problems that customers are having? And pain points can also be boredom, right? Especially during the pandemic, that's been a pain point, or mental health has been a challenge, right? So these pain points, think broadly when you think about pain points, but how are you going to help solve customers' problems and solve their pains? Those are the important things to be thinking about in terms of value. Now, who are your customers? Oftentimes when you're in like a B2C circumstance, it's fairly obvious who your customer is. In B2B, it's a little bit more sophisticated. You have to think about not just the end user, but also the folks inside the organization that make the decisions about purchases, the folks that make decisions about, well, how is this all going to work together with the rest of the solutions that we are taking on board in our company, and even influencers, right? And influencers affect B2C as well as B2B. You're listening to the news every day where they've got little consumer segments about great new products. Those are influencers. You read fashion magazines, those are influencers as well. In B2B, it's more about industry associations or particular analysts. So there are either B2C or B2B multiple segments of potential people, stakeholders, that you need to be concerned about, not just the end user. So as you're thinking through all of this, whole product thinking can give you the perspective of, all right, how can I better satisfy everyone who's going to be involved in the purchase decision and ending up using this product? I don't know, Rena, if you want to add anything or if I keep driving forward.
I don't know, you can keep driving forward. I did want to just bring up a quick question based on what we just discussed with Uber from the audience. Sonia did make the point that Uber does pay attention to the actual product as well. So there are differentiators there. And again, I think our point was not that Uber did not pay attention to the actual product, but that there were significant benefits from paying attention to the augmented product as well. I just wanted to answer that really.
Oh yeah, very good point. Absolutely. Yeah, they've gone in deeper and provided a number of features, if you will, as they've evolved the product, no question. Great point. All right, so let's get back to this idea of value and dig a little bit deeper. There are several different sources of value to be thinking about, and this again applies both B2C and B2B in terms of the objective values as well as the subjective values. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is one of my favorite slides when I'm teaching one of our courses, OPM, because it's a great touchstone for you to think through, how can I deliver more value? Think about every one of these bullets, and can I do something that will bring more benefit to my customer when I think about being able to provide a lower cost, or in B2B, increasing their opportunity to generate revenue, or make the product more enjoyable. Now, with the pandemic, which is something that we're talking more about today as well, there have been a whole host of new emphasis in value. People have increased their needs in several areas here. Right? And one of these increases in needs in terms of, again, B2B has been an increase in productivity. So many more people are working remotely. I mean, look at Rena and I, right? She's down in LA in her home office. I'm up here in my home office in Northern California. We haven't been to the office in months, the physical office, right? So we've needed to become more productive in our work at home environments, right? We've also needed more security so that all of the sharing that we're doing across the internet is safe and secure, and that we're taking care of our clients' data in a careful manner, right? So think about those aspects, and they've become more heightened as a result of the pandemic. In terms of more sort of B2C aspects, everyday life has become infused with this sense of needing to be healthier and to stay safe. So those are aspects that if you can find ways that your product can provide some comfort there or some real increase in capability there of being safe and being healthy, that's very important, because you're all after all trying to help reduce risk. We're all trying to help each other out right now in the pandemic by not spreading the virus. So are there ways that we can do that? And it's not just necessarily masks and washing our hands. There's lots of other things to be thinking about. And in fact, later on, I'm going to give you a more concrete example about that. And then convenience has become crucial, right? Of being able to get goods and services that we would normally expect. We can just go to the store and get those things or order them online. So then ordering online has become way more important and way more convenient. But even for local businesses, and I'm trying to support local businesses as much as I can, because I want them to be there when we are all able to get back out and enjoy life locally, they've had to step up and provide ways to increase their convenience and reduce risks and keep their customers happy. So be thinking about all of these core benefits as you are trying to find new ways to deliver value to your customers. Now, Oftentimes product managers struggle with this idea of features versus benefits. You noticed earlier that we had this in the actual product features, right? Well, features are your avenue, your channel to deliver benefits, right? So you need to have features, and I'm using the example of a Tesla here, where these are all features that are important to have, but really what your customers care about are the benefits. So that's, again, getting back to the core. As a product manager, spend a little less time worrying about each one of the features of your product and start from what are the benefits that my customers actually care about. And those benefits are going to be the things that I want to deliver on. Now, to do that, of course, I need features, right? So if I want to make my car get better every month, then software updates is a way to do that. But it isn't about the feature, it's about the benefit. It's the fact that Tesla drivers really love the fact that their car gets better every month. I just saw a GM F-150 commercial the other day where they emphasized that they're updating their software in their cars now. So this benefit is now trickling into major manufacturers' vehicles as well, and they recognize that's a valuable benefit, to the point that on national TV ads, I was watching the football games last weekend, on a F-150 ad, they had, look, and we keep providing more value in frequent updates. I was like, oh, wow, okay, they've caught on. They know that that's a benefit and they want to offer it, and they're advertising that benefit. So be thinking about benefits first, getting to the core of your whole product, and then think about the features that will deliver those benefits.
Yeah, I think that we actually saw quite a bit of this about a year ago when the pandemic first started. Several companies started responding very differently, and one that comes to mind is Zoom, which previously was not really used for schools, for example, right? And so they started thinking, how do we become a much more secure company, because there were so many issues that started coming up from the extended use of Zoom in a new use case. So that's another example where the focus on the benefit, where there was a new use case and a new benefit desired, created a new feature.
Right. Where a Zoom bomb before at a company meeting was a mere annoyance, but now that you have a class of 30 students in Zoom with a teacher, you definitely don't want Zoom bombing going on in those circumstances, right? So yeah, really good point. Yep. All right, so we've talked a lot about needing to understand the benefits that you deliver to your customers. How do you go about doing that? Now, this webinar is not a webinar on how to go about doing voice of the customer research, although we're going to do that topic later this year. But I just want to give you some quick tips, right? So techniques to uncover problems, use customer journey mapping, use the jobs to be done framework, and use story mapping. All three are very powerful techniques to get out of and get into the perspectives and skin and the eyesight, and get into the shoes of your customer and walk their mile, understand all of the things that are going on, right, in terms of how they need to operate in their job. In this case, it's kind of a B2B example, and then how do they interact with the rest of the organization, and how does their organization have to deliver its own customer experience, right? So we actually have a customer journey mapping tool, and it's a nice template, and I think we're going to paste into the chat box a link to that template. So download that template. We have a couple of blog posts and webinars on this topic as well, and we'll be revisiting the voice of the customer topic again this year. But this is where you start. Look at your customer's journey and figure out what are their problems, what are their pain points, what do they see as value, remember the value slides, and then come up with the benefits that you really could offer that match your company's capabilities. And then you can think about, okay, how am I going to deliver the most benefit, whole product, and really satisfy my customers? Now, so let's start down the journey of doing a couple of examples. And so what I'm going to assume here is that we did this work. We did all of the market research, and we looked at, okay, what problems do we see today with vehicles? All right, and we came up, as a result of all of this good work that we did, we came up with 4 problems that typical customers have with vehicles. And it starts with, they don't like the purchase experience, right? The used car lot is the example I used here, but any in-person experience of buying vehicles has always been just, it's almost as bad as going to the dentist. People have definitely got an opinion that not a fun experience, right? The second thing that we uncover is that folks don't like driving in traffic. There's less traffic lately, but this is going to be a recurring problem when we're all back out on the roads again. And hate driving in traffic is another problem that was uncovered by the market research. The third one is folks want to stretch their dollars. They want total cost of ownership to be as low as possible. So gas, maintenance, repairs, and total cost of ownership, by the way, isn't just dollars and cents. It's also your time, right? So if your vehicle breaks down frequently, or if the experience of having to get your vehicle repaired takes a lot of time where you have to get out of work, you have to be able to get a babysitter or whatever it might take in order to get your vehicle serviced, that is part of this total cost of ownership. So when you're thinking about total cost of ownership, don't just be thinking in dollars and cents, be also thinking about what other dimensions of value are important to your customers. In my example here, valuable, precious time. And now, more recently we have seen as a result of the pandemic, how do we go about this whole purchase and use of a vehicle and keep it safe? How do I choose a vehicle? How do I try it out? How do I purchase it safely? So if these are our problems, now we're going to take the whole product framework and talk about how it can be applied to solve these problems. So let's put the concept to work, right? Where are we going to solve each of these problems? That's our first question. How are we going to solve each of these problems? And so let's start by tackling the first, and I'm actually going to kind of pair up here. We're going to go after problems 1 and 4. People don't like the purchase delivery experience, and now with a pandemic, this has even been amplified in terms of just they really want to be able to choose, try, and purchase a vehicle safely. All right. So I think before I dive into this, though, let's find out what our audience thinks, Rena. Let's see how they think, what you've learned so far. Rena's going to launch the poll.
Right. Yeah, so the poll is launched. And Roger, do you want to read out the question?
Yeah, so based on what we've already talked about today, which parts of the whole product can we use to address the need for a better purchase and delivery experience? Do you think it's the core? Do you think it's some of the characteristics? Do you think it's some of the augmented product characteristics? Maybe it's a combination of the core and the actual product, or maybe it's a combination of the actual and augmented product. And remember, right now we're focusing on this purchase and delivery experience with the amplified aspects of the pandemic where it's about being able to choose and try and purchase more safely and be able to get that vehicle in a safe manner. So I'm curious to see what folks think about these.
So the poll is launched. We're going to keep it open just for a few more seconds here. And I definitely like that there is pretty good distribution right now of answers. Yeah, I agree. I think that Roger, I love this webinar talk. I love hearing how you're describing some of the additional issues that are coming up from the pandemic. Obviously, we're several months into it, but there are still many of these opportunities still out there. We're seeing companies continue to respond to the ever-changing landscape and the new challenges. So I really love this talk. All right, so we have about 67% have voted. So I'm going to be closing the poll and sharing the results right now.
Excellent.
As you can see, about 39% voted the augmented product, and 45% believe it's the actual and augmented product, with a few in between as well.
So over 80% then in those two categories.
Yes.
Right. Excellent. Because I don't see the poll results myself. That's great. Great answer. Yes. Augmented is going to be kind of the center of gravity here for sure. And then actual characteristics and product features probably help as well. Great. So the audience is following along. I love it. So let's dig into this a little bit more and talk about this in some concrete terms. And I'm going to use a couple of examples here. So we'll start with Tesla in terms of their whole concept is that you're able to now order your vehicle online. Right? And they were kind of a pioneer of this, but there are many companies now that are doing this, allowing you to completely configure and order your vehicle online so that you don't have to go to a showroom. You're able to experience the vehicle and see the characteristics of it online, not completely experience it. And I'll talk about that because somebody's already added that service as well. But this online experience, adding the additional software of being able to figure out what model you want and then configure it yourself with this additional web experience is very powerful, right? And then delivery now Carvana, and I don't, anybody remember the ads of the actual like car vending machine, the multi-story tower of a vending machine of cars was a pretty interesting idea. But in practical matters, most of the time it's about they will put the car on the trailer and they will deliver the vehicle right to your driveway. And
You
I
know,
think
I
that's
saw one of those. I saw one of those vending machines when I was in China.
oh wow, that's amazing. Yeah, very, very cool, right? So this has, and again, the pandemic has just amplified this need, right? Of being able to pull up the vehicles of interest, narrow it down to the one that you really like, configure it the way you want, with the color you want, the options that you want, order it, and then have it actually delivered to your driveway. This is an amazing evolution, and it addresses both of these things about the purchase, delivery, and experience not being great, never has been well appreciated. And now in the pandemic, we have all of these other additional problems that we're trying to solve. And I want to kind of put some results in front of you about this. Since the pandemic began, home delivery services have risen 35%. That was just in the first 6 months from the data that I was looking through. GM says their online purchases have tripled compared to before and after the pandemic began. Cars.com has now over half of the vehicles available for home delivery. So 2 million vehicles on Cars.com now are available for home delivery. And here was what I was talking about before. CarMax now even offers 24-hour test drive. So if you really want to truly physically experience the vehicle, you can even get a 24-hour free test drive from home. They will bring the car to you, let you test drive it for 24 hours, and then they'll be back to collect the vehicle from you. And that just, you know, for many people like me who want to actually feel how it drives and have the physical experience of it, that really satisfies another aspect of a pain point customers were having, right? And all of the experts are predicting this is going to be a lasting change, right? So very, very great to see so much innovation here. And again, most of this innovation isn't in the characteristics of the features of the car. It's in all the services surrounding it, right? In the augmented characteristics of the whole purchase experience of a vehicle. All right, let's move on to the next problem that we wanted to solve. The next problem was folks hate driving in traffic, right? And again, I started with the Tesla experience here of auto drive, but almost every car company now is putting in experiences, and there's been several ads now of, like, I think the most recent one was a Mazda ad where it's like the whole family's in the car and then the driver's like, I'm just gonna let the car drive now so we can all have a fun conversation, because they end up in traffic. So this feature, which started out in the Tesla, is expanding widely. And this is an example, of course, of a feature, right? So this is an example where, yeah, actual product characteristics needed to be modified in order to satisfy customers' need. So hate driving in traffic, now there are the capabilities of having auto drive or a semi-autopilot capability in the vehicle. Don't forget, though, that many of the augmented aspects are involved here as well, in terms of standards were required to be able to create technology that interacts all the way through the entire vehicle drivetrain and electrical systems. So there's a lot of integration involved. So even though you may own some pieces of this, you're going to have to work with other vendors and partners to make this all come to fruition. So there's still augmented characteristics involved as well. All right, let's move on to the next problem. Next, total cost of ownership. And I talked about this being multidimensional, right? So in the total cost of ownership area, yeah, once again, we are going to want to work on some features of the vehicle. So in this case, we're going to talk about a whole product view. So oftentimes, total cost of ownership, people are going to think about, well, maybe I just make it more fuel efficient, right? For decades, that's been probably the #1 thing that people think about. But there's a lot more to it than that. When the Prius came out, it came out with the lowest coefficient of drag, even though, and I owned one, so don't get me wrong, I really did not like the look of the vehicle, but the vehicle did a great job at being aerodynamic and therefore reducing drag and increasing miles per gallon. But other aspects, reduced service needs, we talked about that inconvenience earlier, right? And even having service alerts and warnings, so that the vehicle now proactively tells you before there's a major problem that, hey, it's time to pay attention to this problem. And even better, having proactive service notices available. So these are a number of features involved. There's also more augmented characteristics, right? So in terms of better service, better warranties, a number of companies now in the first year, all the maintenance is included for free. So that's another benefit that customers really appreciate. They don't have to think about out-of-pocket expenses for servicing the vehicle. They also have online service scheduling, and they have proactive customer support. Do you go back to the Tesla example? There's even now, the car notices itself it has a problem, notifies the local service center and says, order this part, we're going to need it, and then tells you, go into the app and schedule visiting that particular service center so that you can get that vehicle repaired. So multiple pieces involved here, right? This last part gets back to being a feature. The car has to have like these capabilities to notice a problem and inform you, but then there's a whole chain of events that are spun off from this in terms of customer care, service center, inventory delivery. This is a whole product example of solving the problem. So if there's a slide where you want a really big view of all the things to think about when you're trying to deliver more benefits, I would say this is that slide, in terms of it takes you all through everything from the benefits to the actual product characteristics to the augmented characteristics of the product as well. So be thinking about this for your products as well.
So